Chancellor for P16 initiatives at the Ohio Department of Education. She completed her associate degree at Lincoln Land Community College. Guess where that is? What state? Illinois. Okay, she's from Illinois. Her baccalaureate degree from Sangamon, okay, State University. And where's that?
In Illinois.
In Illinois, figure. Okay. And her master's degree at the University of Illinois at Springfield, and her doctorate at, she's a Bobcat, Ohio University. Dr. Watts previously served as a member of the executive leadership teams at Ohio University, Murray State University, and Illinois State Board of Education, respectively. She provides leadership currently in the Ohio Department of Education for agency initiatives that rely on coordination, and this is a big amount of coordination. I imagine you're going to tell us more about this, between the University System of Ohio and the Ohio Department of Education, including, and there's a whole list here, alignment of high school graduation requirements for college readiness expectations, our whole subject of today, the ability for high school students to gain college credit while still in high school, again, part of our focus today, and the coordination of education preparation. I know we have several teachers here who are in that process, educator preparation, standards development, and the review and approval of educator preparation programs in Ohio. And in addition, if that wasn't enough, in addition, she represents the agency on educator preparation program accountability, oversees the state's Gear Up grant, and serves as the state lead for the Complete College America Mathematics Pathways Initiative. So, would you please welcome Dr. Rebecca Watts? Thank you.
Thank you. So, just as one point of clarification, my agency is the Ohio Department of Higher Education, not ODE. We used to be called the Ohio Board of Regents. And on July 1 this year, the law changed, and they said your agency shall now be called the Ohio Department of Higher Education. It's still a separate agency from ODE, but there was confusion in the field because people would refer to the Board of Regents and people would think they were talking about the people that are on, there actually is a Board of Regents. And so, in fact, they themselves would read things in the paper that said the Ohio Board of Regents did X, Y, or Z, and they would call the chancellor and say, I don't remember doing that. Well, they didn't. So to bring better clarity to that, we are the Ohio Department of Higher Education. We are in the same building as the Ohio Department of Education, but two separate agencies in that same building. We moved into that building with ODE in December 31st of 2012. And the whole point of that was stronger, better collaboration. So the very thing that you all are doing here is bringing together P12 people from high schools and people from colleges and universities, and having them talk about the connections that need to be in place so students can have success across that bridge. We're doing that same thing at the state level. My position is kind of at the heart of all of that work. So you heard some of the things that I'm responsible for. Lots and lots of other folks in our agencies, both agencies, are working on this. So what I'm going to give you this afternoon is kind of an overview of strategic initiatives on Ohio education reform as it relates to that bridge, that connection between high school, college, university, wherever the students are going next. And most importantly, that's not the end, because education is not the goal. Education is a means to an end. So what we're all working together toward is the long-term success of every student. For some students, that will mean at the end of high school, they go directly into a career. For other students, that will mean going on and getting a certificate. For others, an associate degree. For still others, a baccalaureate degree, master's degree, whatever is requisite and needed to support them in success on their own path, what they want to see themselves doing, what they want to be successful in for the long term. So we're all in the same work. It's just different aspects of it as it rolls out. And then when we look at lifelong learning, we see lots of us coming back as adults to continue our education from either a professional development perspective or from a graduate education perspective. But I will focus this afternoon on those connections that really are high school to undergraduate, so high school to baccalaureate degrees. So we, just in policy context, and I'll say this up front. If I am saying things that you are already keenly aware of, please forgive me. I feel like not everyone in the room will be aware of all of these things. So please forgive any repetition. I'm trying to be thorough in painting the picture. So from a policy context in Ohio, the way colleges and universities are now funded is different than it was even just 10 years ago. We historically had funding based on enrollment. So the college or university, how many enrollments do you have? That's how much state aid you get. That's how the formula works. Doesn't work that way anymore. It now works that the higher education funding in the state is divided up between and among the public universities based on some performance measures. And the performance measures are all tied to student success. So course completions and degree and certificate completions. Now, if you think of that from the policy perspective of instead of just throwing our doors wide open, access, 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 bring in anyone and everyone so that we can get not just their tuition revenue, but our portion of the state funding, now that's the old model, that there was no incentive there to get the students to and through. It was just open the floodgates, bring in as many students as you can, and then that's going to support your state funding. Now the model is you still should be providing access and opportunity, but the emphasis on the kinds of academic support and student support that these kids need, kids and adults, we're all kids, that these folks need as they move through the system, that's the incentive. It's not just getting them in the front door, it's getting them to and through to successful completion on the back end. The reason I bring up that policy context is it changes the whole discussion because the emphasis is now on completion. It's not just on access. So I bring you that as a kind of a piece of policy context. And in that work, one of the most important things that we know we need to be able to do for students is have them be ready for success from those freshman classes in college. So they graduate from high school, and we know, our data show us that in Ohio, historically over the past few years, greater than 40% of Ohio public school students who matriculate to an Ohio 2- or 4-year public college or university, more than 40% of them have to take at least one remedial course before they can start taking a credit-bearing course. That's a problem for them. It's a problem for our institutions as well. So it's a problem for students because those courses historically have been semester long. They have the same price tag as a credit-bearing course, but you get 0 credits on your transcript for it. So we're now taking students' time and money or time and financial aid package. In whatever way, we're taking resources that are that student's to call his or her own and saying you have to do this whole semester to even get ready to take college credit-bearing courses, to even start to earn credits toward your degree. In Ohio and across the country, we have seen that model be very, very unsuccessful for the vast majority of students. Many students become discouraged halfway through that semester, either because they now are, it's because the pace is not what they need, or because they're now already covering territory that they already know and they didn't need this much remediation. They might have needed just this much. We also have had frustrations across the state. This is prior to 2012. We had every institution in the state determining what was college ready independently. And in 2011, the legislature passed a law that said the university and college presidents from all the public universities in Ohio, 2-year, 4-year, regional campuses, all the public institutions, by law, were required to come together and come to agreement on what it means to be remediation free, what it means to be college ready in Ohio. And I don't care which institution, a 2-year, a community college, a highly selective 4-year institution, or a regional campus. This is not about admission. This is what triggers placement into credit-bearing courses. We helped, at our agency, we helped bring those folks together. Remember, the law said the presidents had to do this? The law also said the chancellor may help if the presidents want the help. They said, we want the help. So we started by convening faculty. We brought together mathematics, English, and science faculty from across the state. Post-secondary from 2- and 4-year institutions, and high school. We had some high school faculty there as well. And started having those discussions about what skills, knowledge, and content do students need mastery of coming out of high school so that they can be successful in those gateway courses, those first credit-bearing courses at colleges and universities. It was a many-month-long dialogue, and the faculty developed recommendations for each of those content areas. The law also said that the presidents could designate particular assessments and particular cut scores or threshold scores that would signal if you scored above those particular scores, you would be, by rights, the institution could not place you in remedial coursework, non-credit coursework. They had to put you in credit-bearing coursework from the outset. So they made those recommendations. We took them to the provost. The provost took them out to their campuses and vetted them, came back together, recommended them to the presidents, and they were put in place by the statutory deadline of December 31st, 2012. So that bright line is now in place. It's on our website, the Ohio Department of Higher Education, under College Readiness. You'll see that they're called Uniform Statewide Remediation-Free Standards. And remember, this is a ceiling. No institution can place that standard higher than the statewide standard. Institutions can lower it if they want, which would mean that they would be putting students that get lower scores into credit-bearing courses, depending on their assessment of the student needs. So that work happened in 2012. And I'm going to talk about your mathematics colleagues just a little bit, because that act, that action that the presidents took, and by the way, the boards of trustees of each of the institutions had to adopt it into institutional policy. So it had to be codified, and they had to provide that resolution, that board resolution, to our agency. That triggered a discussion about credit-bearing courses, and I'm going to talk about your mathematics colleagues just a little bit. When they decided on what standard level needed to be demonstrated on student skills and knowledge, and then what, for example, ACT cut score correlated to that. So I'm going to tell you the math subscore was 22 that they agreed to. That sparked a huge debate among mathematics faculty, because they said 22 might be ready for a college credit course, but it is certainly not ready for calculus. And I would argue that it's probably not ready for college algebra. That was them saying that. And we said, okay, what's the utility of college algebra? Well, the utility of college algebra is to get students ready for calculus. What's the utility of calculus? Well, calculus is a required course if you're a STEM major, science, technology, engineering, math, or medicine. Our question back to them was, okay, what gateway course do you have in place for students who are journalism majors? Credit-bearing course. Some institutions said, we're good. We have those courses in place, and an ACT of 22 is fine. We're ready to get those students moving toward graduation by starting with these gateway courses. Other institutions had nothing to offer for anyone that's not a STEM major. So by virtue of only having those courses available in their catalog and on their schedule, every student was forced through the STEM pathway for mathematics. And we know, not just in Ohio, but across the country, what happens to students who are not in STEM, don't want to be in STEM pathways. They want to be in business. They want to be in the social sciences. By forcing them through the STEM pathway, they fail. They leave. They never finish their degree. So we said to the mathematics folks, let's be sure that we have good, rigorous college-level courses that are available to students in all majors. That's the Ohio Mathematics Initiative that you heard about in my introduction. We were able to join with Complete College America and be a part of a multi-state grant that's looking at developing college credit, college-level rigor mathematics courses that meet the needs of all majors. So if you're a nursing major, what mathematics course do you need going in? Because historically, on campuses, faculty haven't really talked to each other, and the arts and sciences faculty say, these are our math courses, and I hope they meet your needs, nursing folks and PT folks and journalism folks. This has started discussion about mathematics faculty going to specific program faculty and saying, what really do you need your students to know so that they can move through your program and be successful in their careers? And it has been great dialogue. And so there is development of quantitative reasoning courses, statistics courses, So that work is going on across the state. As part of that work, one of the things that's been identified is the need to identify student need in a more refined way than just this cut score. A cut score tells you what they got on this particular large-scale assessment. But what does it tell you about their specific skills and knowledge? And so now I'll talk about writing. So in our writing assessment, it tells us a score on those large-scale assessments. Here's what the student scored in writing. Here's what the student scored in reading. We need to know more than that. And we need to be able to understand more about the student than that. We need to understand how perseverant are they? How much grit do they have? Have any of you heard of the GRIT assessment? It is not an acronym. Some nods here. It just means grit. It's a free online assessment, and one of the things that it tests is kind of your ability to persevere through challenge. And it asks you some questions about how you behave in particular situations. So as we look at kind of the multiple measures approach to student placement, you can start to define the kinds of support students need and recognize that it must not and it cannot be a cookie cutter approach where historically you score below this line, whatever this line is, you go in developmental. It doesn't matter how close you are to that line. It doesn't matter how much grit you have. We just historically put everybody in those sections. Moving forward, if we use multiple measures and look at students as individuals, we can identify the specific needs that they have and start to build co-requisite models. And we are now a part of another Complete College America multi-state initiative, just got accepted to this. The work has not even begun yet. But I want to plant a seed with you all that we're going to be looking for English faculty to help us with this. It is about co-requisite strategies so that you can get students enrolled in the credit-bearing course. But on your assessment of that student in the placement procedures that they went through when they were admitted and then began to register for classes. So you get them placed in the credit-bearing course, but you've identified that they need a little extra help. So instead of socking them in remediation for a full semester, let them go ahead and start earning the college credit, but as a co-requisite, require that they go to the writing lab 3 times a week. Require that they attend 1 extra hour of class a week. Have whatever it is that you all design. Those co-requisite strategies are really, they're very much faculty designed and driven based on your assessment of the needs of the students that you serve. But the co-requisite strategies can get us past that old problem that we had with remediation where it was costing time and money and they were getting 0 credits on their transcript. With a co-requisite model, they have to work hard. There is no question they have to work hard. But they're, from the outset, now earning credit on their transcript and seeing progress toward graduation. And what we know from studies that have been done for decades, if you can see progress, you stick with it. If at the end of the term you've got a bill, you've got a bunch of textbooks that you had to buy, and you look at your transcript and credits toward graduation equals 0, we know that's discouraging. So we know if we can get past that piece, the psychosocial piece of this, we can help students stay engaged, stay encouraged, and growing and gaining the skills and knowledge that they need. So we have a lot of work going on with that. Statewide, we'll be looking for folks to be a part of a faculty institute. We are also moving to the Ohio Association of Community Colleges is starting a work group on looking at multiple measures. Because you remember how I talked about there's this standardized remediation-free level now in the state. But what do you do, and I've talked about this group of students, those students that are just below that level. And so that's why the Ohio Association of Community Colleges has come together and they feel the need to, I'll stop short of saying standardize, but they want to identify commonly used measures that can help in determining student placement so that the student can find the greatest success possible and that the institution can help to design the co-requisite strategies that meet the needs of that particular student. So we now have a standard statewide, and I'm going to give you an example just to make you understand why that law was passed and how pretty tough the situation was before. We had a college in Ohio that was using an ACT mathematics subscore, and the scales are all the same, so think of your English scores. ACT mathematics subscore, if you didn't get a 27, they put you in remediation. 27. And we had other institutions that were using 19. So if you're a high school mathematics teacher or student or parent, you have to raise your hand and say, what's the target here? Because if, in fact, our courses transfer across our public institutions through the Ohio Transfer Module and the Transfer Assurance Guides, which they do, those entry-level courses, the rigor should be the same. The student learning outcomes should be the same. So why should placement into those courses be so vastly different across our institutions? So that's why it got codified in law. It is now established. Some had to lower their scores. Some were below it. We didn't tell them they had to raise them, but they have. The vast majority of them have brought them up so that we have this bright line that signals college readiness. And college readiness is nothing more than about an 80% predictive chance that the student will be successful in that gateway course. There are no guarantees. You've all known the kids that were honor students in high school, high GPA, high standardized test scores. They go enroll at a residential university where if they don't go to class in the morning, no one calls their mom. If they don't study or do their homework, no one's looking over their shoulder to make sure that they do it, or that they sleep, or that they avail themselves of the food in the dining hall. And that new kind of independence and autonomy that you get when you go to college, we've seen our stars from high school crash and burn in that first semester, and their parents are shocked. They have no idea what happened. So remember, when we talk about the predictive nature of anything, we can only be predictive to a degree. You cannot, and that's one of the reasons for doing the grit assessment. That kind of helps us to start to predict the toughness, the ability to persevere and take on challenges of our students. So there will always be outliers, but for the vast majority of our students, can we inform ourselves with some common measures that will help us to the greatest degree that we can predict how well they will do? The next piece of that work, or maybe this is an advanced piece of that work, is making sure that you all are in the room together, that we have high school folks in the room with post-secondary faculty. And the state just finished its Race to the Top grant about a year ago. And one of the pieces of work that happened in the Race to the Top grant was a high school to higher ed alignment initiative, through which there were 14 consortia that were funded throughout the state for the very purpose of coming together, having high school faculty in a particular discipline talk to post-secondary faculty in that same discipline and compare notes. Talk about the assignments, talk about the readings, talk about the writings, talk about the kinds of expectations that you each have of students. And in and among these 14 consortia throughout the state, there were people that were very surprised by those conversations. Now think about this. Post-secondary faculty haven't sat in a high school classroom since they were students in a high school classroom themselves. High school faculty haven't sat in a freshman college class since they were freshmen in college themselves. And when you were each sitting in those two classrooms, you were thinking of it from a student perspective, not a teaching perspective. So awareness of what is currently expected in each of those two settings is something we can't assume. And if you're not engaged with your peers, high schools and colleges and universities, engaging with each other, there is no way to know with any certainty what the expectations are. And so one of the things that happens is high school folks have felt like, I know what's required in college, my students are prepared, they're ready to go, and then they get a shock because there are some expectations for citations in a research paper. There are expectations for ability to access multiple nonfiction information sources that haven't been the emphasis of our high school English courses. Now, it's interesting with the new learning standards, there's much more emphasis now on nonfiction, information-based texts. as opposed to back in the dark ages when I rode the horse to school and I was in high school, it was absolutely all fiction. When I was in high school, I did not write one research paper in high school. But I can tell you how I felt about The Grapes of Wrath and The Great Gatsby and Lord of the Flies. And that is it's all wonderful stuff. I loved it. I am a voracious reader myself. But in making the transition from how I was prepared in high school to what was expected of me as a freshman in college was very different. So having those conversations and having them frequently, because education is not stagnant. Standards change. We just had a big standards change in our K-12 schools. The development of those standards was informed by college and university faculty. The development of those standards among the states that participated in that development was not done in isolation. But everybody that's teaching in an Ohio classroom wasn't involved in that process. So we need to make sure that we're making those connections for folks to help so that there is not a surprise for students when they make that cross from high school into post-secondary. There also are students that, based on assessments, based on large-scale assessments in high school, by the time they get to grade 11, based on their results, we can tell if they're on pace to be college ready. And for those that aren't on pace to be college ready, as demonstrated on their 11th grade assessments, there is something you can do, and there are models being built on this, and we're working on a mathematics model for this, and hope to do the same with English ostensibly next year. And that's building a 12th grade transition course that would meet the high school graduation requirement for the 4th year of mathematics, but would be designed for those folks, those students that early on didn't really get the foundational knowledge and skills that they needed. For example, if you struggled with fractions and you made it through your classes with D's, you just kept moving on through the other math, and if you didn't have a fundamental understanding of fractions, there's a whole lot that you're not going to be able to do in algebra and calc, and really geometry. So what these 12th grade transitional courses will be designed to do is, in a very time-sensitive way, go back and revisit those fundamentals so that you're helping students build a stronger foundation and then move them through so that by doing a very intense course, making good, great use of that 12th grade year, which sometimes we see students checking out in that 12th grade year. Instead, let's really put an emphasis on catching up and shoring up. And we could do the same thing in English. There are other entities that are doing this. The Southern Region Education Board has put together 12th grade transitional courses for this very purpose, and we're seeing good results. So that students who appeared to be not on pace for success by the end of 11th grade got there by the end of 12th grade and didn't need remediation when they got to college. They were ready, they were strong, and in fact, in some instances, stronger than those students who didn't take the 12th grade transitional course because they were pretty fresh on those fundamental skills. So we're moving forward with the mathematics transitional course first, but I will tell you that we're going to be coming to the English folks around the state and asking if there are people interested in developing such a course. Obviously, curriculum and courses are at the purview of the local district. It's a local control state. But if there were a course design that was out there that could be shared, what we've seen in other states is folks avail themselves of that and move it through their curriculum and instruction. Folks in their own district get it approved by everyone at the local district that needs to have it approved and start to offer that. So now I've talked about the students who kind of are on the bubble. The students who are not on the bubble, who are really, really struggling. Our traditional remedial model, while it's not been very successful, is probably going to be what's needed for those students. Because co-requisite support is probably not going to be sufficient for what they need. The goal here is to make sure that we're not prescribing medicine for someone who doesn't need it, that we're giving just the right amount of support and just the right amount of help for students where they are. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our accelerated students and open a can of worms. I'm going to open the College Credit Plus can of worms. Statewide, it's underway, it's rolling. the students who can demonstrate while they're still in high school that they are already college ready can engage in college credit earning courses, transcripted credit, while they are still in high school. And that provides an opportunity for them to accelerate and save a whole bunch of time and a whole bunch of money by the time they complete their degree. We have seen students graduate from high school with a high school diploma and an associate degree at the same time. That's happened in this state. There are students that are doing that. You go into college as a junior. Parents are very happy about that because of the amount of tuition money that you save. But we know that there are challenges with College Credit Plus, and we know that one of the issues and one of the challenges is the ability to deliver college courses, the College Credit Plus courses on the high school campus. There is a requirement for faculty at post-secondary institutions, just like there are requirements for faculty in high schools. In Ohio and in most states, to teach in a K-12 school, you must hold a license. You must have a teaching license. It's the law. You have to have that. In post-secondary institutions, it is an Ohio requirement and an accreditor requirement of the Higher Learning Commission of the North Central Association that to teach in general education courses, in baccalaureate programs, a program that could lead to a bachelor's degree, the faculty member must hold a master's degree in the content that they teach. There has been the challenge for some of our high school folks because we have high school teachers who hold a master's degree in curriculum and instruction and want to teach a College Credit Plus course in English. You have to have a master's degree in the content. It can't be a curriculum and instruction master's degree. It can't be an administration master's degree. It has to be a master's degree in the content, not pedagogy, content. So we have, recognizing that problem, worked with the legislature, the governor's office, the Department of Education. And next week, there will be a request for proposals that goes out for 2 grants. It's going to be one RFP for 2 grants. The legislature set aside 2 different buckets of $5 million each. The sole purpose of these funds for these grants will be graduate education for high school teachers. The first bucket will go to grants to partnerships. So it could be a university, an educational service center, a couple school districts, to design a model that is tailored to meet the needs of the teachers in those districts. So in some districts, they are all set because they have folks that have master's degrees in English and master's degrees in mathematics, but they're social sciences and they want to offer a college political science course, but they don't have social studies teachers that have the masters. It will be specific to the needs of each of the districts in the partnership, but those grants will go out for the sole purpose of creating and delivering graduate coursework that can either lead to a master's degree or give the 18 content hours. Because if you hold the master's degree in curriculum and instruction, you don't have to get a separate master's degree. You have to have a cohesive set of 18 hours of content coursework. So you could get the 18 hours of content, and then with that and your master's degree, because you have attained a graduate degree, you are now qualified to teach in whatever content area you get your 18 hours of content. The second bucket of $5 million is to go to universities for the same purpose, except that these funds are to be used either for tuition waivers or tuition discounts for teachers. So if you think of this from the teacher's perspective, somebody's going to pay for your graduate coursework. You're going to be qualified to not only teach College Credit Plus courses, but you could be an adjunct. You could teach a summer course. You're now qualified to be a faculty member of that institution. Not necessarily just the institution that provided you the graduate degree, but any college or university, you're now qualified to teach college-level courses. And you're moving along on the salary schedule depending on your collective bargaining agreement in your district. So we felt really good that we were able to get that appropriation through. The RFP is going out next week, so we would encourage you all to watch for that. The money has to be spent in the first year of the biennium. So by June 30th of next year, all that money has to be out the door from the straight A fund. and out to the grantees. The grantees don't have to spend it down in that year, but those grants, so we're moving with some haste but great care to make sure that we're getting that RFP out so that proposals can be developed, submitted, and those grants can get out the door in this school year. And we understand that there are other challenges related to College Credit Plus. We've had everything from complaints from high schools that the rigor of the college course isn't as rigorous as they would expect or as they would hope, and they don't really want to give the student the high school credit for it. The provost, the college and university is responsible for assuring that course, by law, has to be the same syllabus that's taught in other sections of that course on that campus. If there are colleges and universities that are not doing that, if they have a different syllabus than their regular college course, let's say it's political science, the syllabus has to be the same. The student learning outcomes have to be the same as they are for full-time freshmen that are on that campus. And if you find that if you have evidence that some institution is not doing that, notify us and we'll research it. We'll reach out to them and investigate. We also have complaints that high schools are throwing barriers in front of students to discourage them from participating in College Credit Plus. By telling them that there are only particular colleges or universities that they can go to. That is not the case. The intent and the premise of College Credit Plus is that it is a student choice program. So if your district has a negotiated rate, a lower than the ceiling rate for the state subsidy with a particular college or university for English composition, and you have a student who is in your high school and says, that's very nice, but I choose to do online English composition with the University of Toledo. They can do that. It is the student's choice. The school cannot steer where the student takes the course. If the student can prove that she or he is ready, college ready, they can enroll in any college or university in the state that will admit them and have them participate in the course. That means that default rate is that $160 per credit hour if the course is not being taught on the high school campus. The reason for the law, the new law for College Credit Plus, is the rates of participation in the old PSEO in some pockets of the state were exceptionally low. And if you think of that from a student perspective and the benefits of earning college credit while you're in high school, again, saving time and money toward completion, and that might buy you an opportunity instead of getting done quicker when you go to college, you might be able to study abroad. You might be able to double major. You might be able to have a minor. Lots and lots of benefits there for students. But in so many instances, students were not participating, and in most instances, it was because they didn't know about the opportunity. So there are things in the law that are requisite for schools and for colleges and universities. Colleges and universities have to post on their websites which College Credit Plus courses are available. High schools have to post on their websites when the information nights occur for parents, for students to come in and learn about it. High schools have to invite in all of the colleges and universities in their region so that students are able to learn about the broad base of opportunities. I'll give you kind of an outlier example. There might be a student who is a very, very advanced music student who wants to go ahead and knock out freshman music theory while they're still in high school. It is likely that not every college or university in the area will have that one particular thing available, that one particular course available. And if there is one, it's likely that the school district isn't going to be interested in negotiating a different rate just with that college or university for that one course. That's okay. That student still has the right to engage and enroll in, if admitted, to enroll in that music theory course at that college or university, whether it's online, on their campus, or some hybrid of the same. So I understand it's the first year and there's a lot of push and pull, and I'm going to just tell you because we have folks from all parties in the room. I have had district superintendents say to me, the colleges are admitting anybody and everybody, whether they can demonstrate that they're college ready or not. It's just a money grab. And I have had college and university presidents say to me, those schools are doing anything they can to keep the kids engaged to keep them from engaging in College Credit Plus courses. It's just a money grab. So accusations on both sides that it's a money grab. And where is the interest in the student and the student's best interests? I would hope it would be right in the center. I understand resources. I understand resources are tight. But we have to make sure that for students, they have the opportunities to do advanced studies while they're in high school. And I'll just put this one piece on the end of this. College Credit Plus won't be the right thing for every student. If you have students that you know want to go to an out-of-state institution after they get out of high school, College Credit Plus doesn't carry as much clout for them as it does the in-state students, because transcripted credit for College Credit Plus at a public institution in Ohio, in the core general education areas, is guaranteed to transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year, from a regional campus to a main campus. Across our public institutions, those general education courses are guaranteed to transfer. They have no guarantee of transfer on transcript outside of Ohio. So if you have folks that want to go to an out-of-state institution, maybe AP is better for them. If you have students that want to go to a private university, maybe AP is better for them. But one of the greatest benefits of the College Credit Plus courses is the guaranteed transfer. So if you have students that know they want to go to a public institution in Ohio, 2 or 4-year, College Credit Plus is going to hold some guarantees for them on transfer that AP or honors will not. And then I'll finally talk about what grade weighting. Another thing in the law is that you cannot disadvantage a student for taking a College Credit Plus course. To weight an AP course for GPA or to weight an honors course for GPA and to not weight a College Credit Plus course for GPA is disadvantaging the student. So if you weight your AP with whatever calculus you use, you must weight College Credit Plus at that same calculation, at that same multiplier. So again, at its heart, this law is in students' interest, so that more students avail themselves of this opportunity than previously was being done. And I will here's the quiz. In Ohio, there were pockets of higher and lower rates of participation in the old PSEO. Do you think, which do you think had higher rates of participation, rural or urban? Exactly right. Rural had much higher rates of participation. And there could be multiple reasons behind that, one of which is smaller districts don't necessarily have as many course offerings because they just are smaller. They don't have as many faculty, don't have as many students, and so students were availing themselves of the PSEO. In urbans, the districts are larger, and ostensibly you have larger sections and more course offerings available. Although, if you think about urban settings, transportation is usually there with mass transit, and rural settings, transportation is a huge challenge. And distance becomes a barrier for students. So we will see. We are gathering tons and tons of data. The high schools and the colleges and universities have to report the College Credit Plus data to us. We'll be studying that. And one thing that to provide assurance on this academic rigor piece, we'll be looking at grade distribution. We'll be looking for a normal distribution on grades, because one of the things that we've heard in the concerns about academic rigor is, oh, they're just going to give everybody an A. Well, that'll become abundantly clear if that's what's happening, because grades is one thing they have to report. We'll also be monitoring the success of the students in the subsequent course. So if there's a College Credit Plus Composition 101 course, we'll be looking at those students, those very students who participated in that College Credit Plus course, English Composition 101, to see how they did in 201. We'll be looking at their success in the subsequent course and comparing them to full-time students on that campus to make sure that the intent of the program is proving out, that we're actually helping students be successful as they move along the path. So many, many policy things going on in the state, many content things going on in the state, all requiring and counting on the help of faculty to make it happen. So one of the things that we have to do with the remediation-free standards, we have to reconvene our faculty groups, because the Compass assessment, which is an ACT product, that's used for placement on many of our two-year campuses in the state is being sunsetted. ACT is discontinuing the Compass assessment in fall of 16. It's used in high volume in the state. So we have to bring faculty together and say, are there other large-scale standardized assessments that you all are using, and at what volume? And if that's the case, we probably need to get those embedded in the statewide remediation-free standards. Again, the goal of that is fairness for all students and a successful transition from high school to post-secondary, which you all are at the heart of. So thank you for all you do for students. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for working with each other. Don't stop working with each other. Get it written into your job description. I'm not joking, because there are champions in this room. And if one of you retires or one of you goes to a different district or a different college or university, the momentum of the work that you've started will disappear. Get it written into your job description. Get it put in your P&T dossier. Get it put into some codified thing so that it's not an extra thing that you do. It's how you do what you do. Thank you for all you do. And I don't know, do we have time for, I don't know what time it is. Do you want to do questions? I'm happy to answer questions, dispel rumors or myth. Yes?
I have a question.
Yes.
When it comes, if a student takes one of the courses and let's say they fail it, are their parents required to pay the district back the money that the district paid for that course?
Only if the student is not economically disadvantaged.
Okay, so that's one of the things that I think like maybe our guidance uses to maybe what's the word I'm looking for, like discourage the students from taking courses is that hey, if you may not be ready for this, so if you go there and you fail, then well your parents are going to have to pay us back.
And I would have to go back and check that. I'm not sure it's the case if they fail that you have to pay it back. It is the case if they stop going and fail to drop according to the university guidelines. That's the case that the student has to pay it back. I'm not certain they have to pay it back if they fail. Now, is okay. The other thing. Oh, okay. All right. So it's up to the district. There is one thing that the student needs to think about, though. If they try and fail, that's on their permanent transcript.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
It's true. This college courses should not be taken any time, whether you're in high school or in college, lightly. There are no do-overs. I mean, you can repeat a course, but now you're adding to your cost, you're adding to your time, and you're hitting your financial aid package, and that's another thing. You know, folks have been concerned about that the Pell limit. You're not accessing financial aid while you're in high school, but you could, if you struggled, then end up having those credit hours, not credit hours, but those failures on your transcript, and so that 150% time to degree completion could bite you. You have to be sure that you're ready to do well in the class. So I'm not saying that districts should not be advising students in a very, very careful way about that. It's that sweet spot. It's between making sure they understand the consequences and encouraging them to work hard and excel.
Yeah, and the particular piece of talking about was too a group of college prep kids where kids anyway, but I think it's just like some of them that originally thought, hey, I want to do this, and we're now like, wait a second, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so that shouldn't be the case. It sounds like that was a pretty motivated, talented group of kids. Yeah, so you should make sure they understand the consequences, but you should also not discourage their participation. By the way, the law says that 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders can participate. If a 7th or 8th grader decides they want to participate, I'm going to give you this example, and they want to take psychology. Their parents need to be ready for the fact that they're going to be discussing really mature things in that class. These are college courses. They will not be shielded or sheltered from content because they happen to be 13 or 12. Other questions?
Hi. Have there been concerns raised by high school teachers regarding what will happen with the state of the classes without the CC Plus students? I would assume that if you're sort of pulling some of the most talented and brightest students from the curriculum, from the school, from those other classes, the state of that school might be changed drastically without the presence of those particular students. Has anyone been discussing this?
So that's a concern that has come up. And the policy response to that concern is, depending on the size of the school, there may be an AP section and a College Credit Plus course section, right? But in smaller districts, there may be concern for that. That's why we really, really, really want the high school teachers to be able to get the master's content that they need so they can have those students in their class. Now, this was a change that was made based on feedback statewide. At first, the guidance was College Credit Plus course cannot have anyone in the class that's not earning college credit. There was flexibility put in place for that. So you could have a mixed section of College Credit Plus course students and other students that are only earning high school credit for it. But the assessment that you do for these students has to be different and more rigorous, and the work that they have to do has to be differentiated between those that are just earning high school credit and those that are earning college credit and high school credit at the same time. So we've heard it. We believe that there are policies and supports in place that can address those concerns at the high school level. It will take time. One of the quick kind of assessments that districts have had to do is, who do I have on my team that holds the content master's degree to teach the courses that my students are interested in taking? Remember that RFP comes out next week, so do that assessment really quickly so you can identify, look, we have one person and she only needs 9 graduate hours and then she's ready to go. And there's money behind that. So think about those opportunities. Those are straight A grants, so they'll post on the ODE website, but it's an ODE, ODHE combined grant. No other questions? Thank you for all you do, and thank you on behalf of students. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.